Hello and welcome to Your Truth, a presentation of KJV Media. I'm in the studio with my brothers Carl and Jason, and today we're going to talk about a topic that was on my mind all last week, and it has to do with whether or not you are religious or non-religious. I believe that all of us have something or someone that they hold onto, and when the chips are down, when things go bad, that they say that, okay, well, I may not be a Christian, I may not be a Jew, I may not be Muslim, but at least I have something that keeps me going. And so I wanted to talk about that because a friend of mine on Facebook, he always talks negative about Jesus, but every morning on his post, he says, "Great rise" to his audience, and he, for the most part, is encouraging to his audience. So I know that there is some belief system or some social structure that keeps him together when everything else is falling apart. So that's what I wanted us to talk about on this inaugural presentation of Your Truth. So I wanted to start off by, as we will do on this presentation, even though we don't want to be religious in terms of going off as pious or like holy or whatever, we do want to begin by a word of prayer. So I want you guys to just join us as we pray, because we really want this broadcast to be serious and with people who want to be part of it and engage us, but on a higher standard than just wanting to talk. We want to hear your truth, but we want to engage you in such a way that it not only builds you, but those around you. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, I want to thank you so much that you have caused us to use media and the instruments that we have to engage our community and the world. And I ask you that on this presentation and future presentations of your truth, that we would be not just good representatives, but excellent help to those who maybe are not of the understanding that we are, but they have a truth that keeps them going. And so today, as we engage the audience, we ask you to help us, that we may be good influences to help others. Amen.
Amen. Now, where's the mic? Where's your mic on this? This right here. I don't have a religion. I don't believe in Christianity or Jesus Christ, but I don't have a ego per se. I got an ego. I got some things I got to balance out. Let me be honest about that. Of course, this is your truth, so you got to be truthful to yourself. But I'm not going to knock a person because they're praying to Jesus. So that being said, I think we should go on with the topic. Brother Carl, anything you want to add on there, brother?
Just looking forward toward a very interesting intellectual conversation here. This is the first time me, Vernon, and Jason ever decided to do a podcast together. We did converse about this a couple of months back, and I'm just glad to be part of this group. So, to start off, we'll see what happens.
So, my journey is a little different. So, I first went into the Nation of Islam. What happened was I was homeless, long story, and I guess when you're down and out, I wouldn't say I was down. I was out. I was never down, because I had something in me that said, you're going to get out of this. But needless to say, I ran into a guy and he started teaching me certain things, and I started studying certain things. So I got into the Nation. Then I was with the Nation and Orthodox Islam. Then I got out of Islam and I got into Metanetta. And my support system is nothing outside of myself. In fact, I look at myself as God. Now, some people will be like, hey, that's kind of arrogant, that's kind of way out there, that's kind of whatever. But the way I rationalize that is this: you are from which you came. And I'm not separate from God, and God is not separate from me. And I come from the thought of God, and you can't measure thought. So I always existed because I exist in God and in self. So to me, self is God. Now, that doesn't mean that I worship self. How I worship may be different from how you worship. For instance, some people will go to church, whether that be Saturday or Sunday, and they pray. Me, I worship by being, by acting. If I see you need help, I step in if that's possible. I also meditate. So I try to connect with the inner force that's within, because as a Christian would say, the kingdom of heaven is within. So I'm not looking for nothing outside of myself, and that's where I'm at.
Based upon my understanding, by the way, good thought, Jason. That was pretty insightful. Of course, mine may not be as insightful as Jason's, but to my understanding, what people would like, I've heard people use the term, what you put in the universe will come back to you, or they believe in a higher power, or they don't believe in God, but they believe in someone that's equivalent to God, whether it be a woman or a male, but it doesn't have to be necessarily Jehovah per se. However, based upon my belief, based upon what I've researched according to the Bible, based upon what I've read, of course, we all have our own individual perspective, but based upon my belief, I do believe that Jehovah is God, which the Bible says. I do believe He is the creator of the universe. That's my perspective. That's my belief.
Okay.
For me, it began at, I think, 4 or 5 years old, and realizing that everybody else had mother, father, but I had none of those. I had sisters, brothers, people who didn't have to take care of me, but they did, and they didn't really go to church. Nobody in my family really go to church at that time when I remembered, but every Christmas or Easter, stuff like that, they would be in church. But living with my older brother, I do remember him praying, and of course we prayed when we ate our meals, but for me, the whole concept of God as a kid was foggy, because in my mind I couldn't comprehend some force out there, something out there that I couldn't see. They said I had a mother, they said I had a father, but I couldn't see either one of them. So if they said that there's such a thing as God, why would I believe that now? And I couldn't see mother and father. So it took me a long time before I could embrace the concept of God out there somewhere. I knew my grandmother loved me and my little brother. She was the one who was taking care of us for the most part, but she would always tell us these Bible stories, and she would always encourage us to do the right thing. So actually I would look at her as the example of this God that everybody was saying that was there, because she's the one who really took us under her wings and encouraged us. Now, as far as that experience, for most people, when you have a tragic event, that's when you say you want to find God, because you think that life has come to like a crossroad and you don't know where to go, and so you try to find God. For me, it happened when a family member passed away, and I couldn't at that point understood why. But she was elderly, and yet I couldn't understand why. But I remember on her front porch, the day that she passed, I was there just crying and just wondering why. And then I had this experience where this bright light just appeared in front of me, and as clear as I'm talking to you, He said that it was Jesus. For me, that was it. After that, I was a believer. I didn't, and I would right now don't worry about what other people say or don't say about Him, because I had an experience. And this is something that my brother Jason always talks about: experience. Experience always trumps this or that. And I know that to be true because I've had mine. And that's why I don't knock anybody nowadays, because I realize that, and this is the reason why today's topic is so important, your experience, what you hold on to in times of crisis. And that's what I'm going to ask my brothers right now. And for you, I hope that when you get a chance that you will comment your experience and what you hold on to. But Carl, say, like, when you didn't have this personal relationship with God, what did you hold on to for dear life? What was your security blanket?
My parents. My parents were my security blanket. They were. I felt secure with them because, based upon how overprotective they were upon me and my siblings, they were easily reliable. And of course, although in retrospect, even though I guess you can say verbally, I was a Christian, a Christ believer, but not based on actions, you know. So I was one of those cultural Christians that was just basically a random Christian believer, but I was more based off sight than by faith, you know. So even though I did, you know, quote unquote, believe in God, my parents were my security blanket, you know, and you know, whenever I be in trouble, they were always there for me, you know, as far as people to rely on. When I'm in trouble, I will go ahead and run straight to them for, you know, for guidance and help. That was just my security blanket.
Same question, Jason. What was your go-to person or thing?
Well, I couldn't say it was my parents. Not that they didn't do a good job. I just expected everything to be running okay. You know, when you're a baby, you don't expect not to get fed. You don't expect not to be catered to. I guess they would call that the beginning stage of your ego, if you will. And to clarify ego, to me, I mean, we title it ego, but people want what they want. My security was in myself, in my ability to get up and make things happen. And I didn't realize that in the beginning because I used to think real negative, and negative things used to happen. You know, I didn't believe in negativity. I knew it. So, when you know, for me, this is, again, the topic is your truth. For me, I didn't believe in anything. I knew. You know, I know that, you know, if I put A and B together, it's going to come out to be whatever. I'm going to put it out there, and it's whatever I will or put out there, I'm going to get that result. And I don't look at it as something in the sky, God didn't allow that to happen, or it wasn't God's will. I've never seen a guy sell dope and say, oh, God, help me sell this dope. Now, I'm pretty sure there's some people out there that probably do that. But when you're about to do wrong, you don't turn to any God. Usually you just go out there and do it. Now, I'm not knocking anybody that may be against what I'm saying. For me, again, my security came when I had an experience, and this is not to go tit for tat. I was doing a Islamic chant. In my opinion, probably wouldn't matter no matter what chant I was doing. For me, it's your intention. And I saw myself laying down in my bed, and I knew right then and there, one, there's no such thing as death. Two, this thing that, and when I say thing, I mean no disrespect, but the title that we're talking about, God, isn't an individual that's in the sky watching your moves. That experience that I had, I was connected to everything that was in existence. I mean, I felt like I was the entire universe, or thought, or infinite, whatever you want to call it. I was with it, like a drop coming out of the ocean. I was the drop, but I still had the ocean in me. So for me, my support as I got older, you know, trial and error, because I had a lot of errors. People probably say you're erroring now, but my experience made me realize that, and this is not this thing that they call the secret. Let me just clear that up, because there's a lot of teachings that are in the Bible, Quran, Gita, whatever persuasion you're in, Mitaneta, whatever you're into, that you could say, yeah, the secret took it from that. You know that video that they call The Secret, right?
Right.
So I know that when you think a certain way and move with action, you will get that result. And there's no God stopping you, it's you stopping you. But that's, in a nutshell, where I'm at.
For me, it was television. Well, at that point, yeah, I heard about God, but for me, I remember when we first got our television back in 1981, and due to certain circumstances, that was me, morning, noon, and night. And I remember at one point, guys, that I actually, the people on TV were more real than the people in the actual world, that they became my family. Like even the cartoon characters, when I would go to sleep, I would imagine them as friends, people I could talk to, because I felt like I couldn't talk to anybody out there. So literally, my go-to place was TV. When I would have a bad day, I would come home, flip on the TV, see how different people's lives are, realize that they were living happier lives, and I would get happy just because seeing them happy. And I remember one day in particular, it was just amazing. I went to sleep, and for some reason, I thought about it. How am I making TV my comfort, the thing I held on to? But you know what? I dismissed that idea because that's when things started to change. It was around the time that the Challenger happened. That was way back in 1986, for those of you who remember. And at that point, I actually saw that on television, and I couldn't wrap around in my mind how I could be watching people actually die. And so I went back into a deeper place where now television became even more of a comfort zone. And I have to tell you, between 1981 and 2000, and I think it was 7, 8, 9, somewhere around there, where the hold was broken. But for that stretch, to me, television was more real than God was. And when I couldn't hold on to this physical, tangible thing that people call God, there was television. There were the lives of people. It was my place where I went for refuge. My favorite things were the comedies, because just to escape a sad world, and that's what made me start to think of this today on Your Truth. What do you hold on to when you are in a time of crisis? Now, Jason said something very interesting, and I wanted to piggyback on that. The whole idea of yourself as your God.
No, I didn't. Go ahead.
Not you per se, but most people, before you were told that there was a God, only thing that you saw was, you looked in the mirror and you saw you saw your reflection, and you realized, as Jason was saying, that you have to make things happen. For the most part, humanity is selfish. If they say that you have to go out there, you have to get it done. And so a lot of people learned, as a song said, I had to learn to depend on me. The only person that I could turn to was me. And of course I'm referring to the famous Whitney Houston song. And that's what I want to ask my brothers right now. Jason, I'll start with you. Was there ever a time that you really, really thought that there was no one that you could turn to in this whole world? I mean, nobody. But it was like you fighting against the whole world, and it was you against the world.
Yeah, ever since I left home. I left home at, 1920 or 2020 or something like that. And I could have went home, but I chose not to. And I caught a lot of hell. And if you want to find out your value, quote unquote, or how people perceive you, have nothing. Have nothing, and you will see the true, genuine, I wouldn't say all peoples, because evidently some people sat down and they taught me while I was homeless. But I came to a realization that, yes, my family has a lot of money, but since I'm not turning to it, I got to go get it. I got to make it happen. I have to depend on what I'm dependent on. Now, don't get me wrong. I was caught up in religion too now. I don't want to sound like I'm some guru that had all the answers. No, I once was a Christian myself, Baptist at that. But I got into Islam, and to the Muslims out there, or those that debate on their religions, for me, you have Allah, you have Muhammad, and you have the Gabriel. The Christian has Jesus, they have the Holy Ghost, and they have God. When you add the numbers up, you get 3. And each one is turned into whatever they believe to be their God, or what is true. After I started studying a little bit more, and I don't know at this particular time if I'm going to dive into that, because you don't want to throw people off. Not saying that people couldn't grasp what I'm saying, because what I'm saying is not really that deep. But as times went on and I started looking back at my life, I pretty much got everything that I really, really deep down wanted. I'm not talking about, man, I want this car, or I want this particular career or job. For instance, I love entertainment, and I wanted to get involved on a high level. I'm talking about high level. I'm not talking about, oh, I know Jay-Z's manager or I know whoever. I wanted to get involved with the people that own the labels, and it came to me. The situation came where I could do that and get involved with certain people. So I understand now that how I think, how I feel within my thoughts, how I imagine things to be, will be my reality, and is my reality, because my thought is coming from somewhere, and that's a whole different topic. But I don't want to hog the sound. That's just my view right now.
Carl, I know that your family structures that, for the most part, it is based on family, but was there ever a point in your life where you didn't think that family, friends, anyone was there for you, and it just had to be Carl on his own, Carl fending for himself, Carl doing for himself? Do you remember anything like that?
In retrospect, not really, to be honest with you. And then, not really in retrospect. Reason being because I grew up in a strict home, very strict home. My parents were overprotective, like I said, and of course I was molded to automatically rely on my parents, So that the idea of that, what you just mentioned, that you just asked me, it never came to mind, to be honest, So honestly speaking, no, I never had that typical experience, and compared to Jason, where eventually I would have to basically rely on myself, because honestly, I never experienced what you call independence. So yeah, the answer is no, to be honest.
The funny thing is that I knew that that's what he was going to say, but I had to ask anyway, so that you realize that there are some people who have a structure around them where that there's this thing called never alone, and yet, here's the thing, if I was to ask him as an individual trained to have independent thought, were you ever trained that, okay, I have a brain, I could use it, or were you taught to be molded in the way of others?
Yeah, but actually, all of the above. I was never trained to be independent, to be honest. I was, like I said, I was basically molded to always rely on my parents. Most especially my mom. She's the very most controlling one, and like you said, yes, I was molded to rely on the help of my parents. So in a way, gradually as time passed by, I would have like a sense of low self-esteem, basically, because for the fact that I basically allowed that to happen, even as an adult, I still relied on my parents, which was to me, not a wise thing to do, because you can only develop wisdom, in my opinion, you can develop wisdom by exploring things on your own, just get your feet wet out there in the world and, figure things out on your own. But because I was so accustomed, so ingrained to rely on my parents, it became like a livelihood for me, so.
Thanks, guys. Really insightful. For me, I did have an experience, and it was actually pretty painful, because I wanted to get into a magazine production, and I was trying to get my church to be involved in doing it, and I was told by a certain investor that we were going to do this, that, the other. This was back in 1997, and I remember that none of it happened. Everything felt true, and unlike Jason, I had never had the thought that I could do stuff on my own. I did do things independently of others, but that was only because I had to, I was supposed to. I had the family around, but I didn't really want to involve them. I was saying I wanted to do it on my own, so I figured that the next best thing was church family. That didn't happen. And so remember that March, 97, I was so angry that I couldn't get to the point where I wanted to be. So it's like I literally, you always hear people talk about it, but I literally put my fist up in the air and said, God, I don't believe in you anymore. I don't want to serve you, because how could you be real? And you talk about all these beautiful things, yet the people who are supposed to be part of your kingdom are acting this way. That they don't want to even invest in doing something for their own community. So I just turned my back on God. And for the next 4 years, as I was sharing with Jason a while back, I did everything that you could think of in terms of hustling people out of their money, because I felt that I could do it. I felt that my mind was powerful enough to get people, even if it was their last dollar, by just telling them that, and I was in graphic design, I was in music as an A&R, I was consulting businesses, and I knew how to get into people's minds, and I knew how to get their money, and it was like money started coming like crazy.
Yeah, but you know what? I gotta cut you. Stop right there. Your key word was, I knew. And because you knew, whether it was negative or positive, results came. So you knew it. So you don't need, per se, structure. And I don't want to, gobble up what you were saying. But the structure is all in you. And your desire ignites that knowing, that confidence that, yes, this is going to get done. And you knew you could get it done. Whether it was positive or negative, you started making a lot of money. Now, this call or this talk is your truth. I mean, we can bring up money. I've made some decent money. I've done some wrong for some money too. But money started showing up. And you did not doubt. As a matter of fact, I'll give an example, and then I'm gonna, let you guys chime on in. It's funny, if you make a certain amount of money, and you're accustomed to a certain amount of money, do you realize that A, you will always receive that type of money, and B, you cannot receive anything less? My example is Jaguars. I don't drive anything but Jaguars. I've had 5 Jaguars. I won't buy anything but a Jaguar or something higher. Now, is that ego? No. What it is I love Jaguars. I like them. So when I was homeless when I saw a Jaguar. Of course, I'm British. But when I saw this Jaguar, I wanted this Jaguar. I was like, wow, I really like the way this Jaguar looked. And you know what? The sucker showed up 5 times because it's what I really wanted. Anyway, that was just something I wanted to throw out when you said the word I knew.
Actually, thank you for doing that, because that's going to be our next and our final segment, dealing with sowing and reaping, the principle that we call sowing and reaping. But I just want to conclude by saying, actually, Jason's right. I didn't have any doubt that it was going to come. See, the thing about it is, like, being in religion, that's one thing that happens, that for the most part, as so-called Christians, they doubt, they have complaints, they worry. But every morning that I woke up, I really didn't have any doubt that by the end of the day, I was going to be straight. I was going to have money. No doubts whatsoever. I knew my next mark was going to come from somewhere. I knew that somehow somebody was going to come in my path with money, and I was going to be able to get them to give it to me. No doubt. So the thing I did for myself was familiar myself with marketing, familiar myself with the music industry, familiar myself with graphic design. So I was on board in all those things and able to do it to the best of, quote unquote, my ability. And one thing I said in all that time, that I'm gonna be the best. I didn't even think about humility or ego or whatever. I'm gonna be the best, and people are gonna come to me because they know that I do quality stuff. And I remember one day in particular, I had all the stuff that I wanted. I think I shared with Jason this also, that back then it was video games, and like every other week I was buying new games. Every other month I was buying a new system. I remember actually one day that I had a system that it broke down, and at that time it was like over $300, and I went back to the store, spent another $300 on another system. That's how much money I had back then. And I couldn't credit somebody, investing in me and giving it to me. It was because every day I went out and did it on, quote unquote, my own. But something Jason said is very important. because that is how I want us to close, because that's the reason why I wanted this first program, because no matter what, it's true that whatever you put out there, it actually does come back to you. And right now, as we do our final segment, I want to ask my brothers, huge question. I'll start with Carl first. Carl, what's the biggest thing that you wanted out of life that you worked hard and you put into it and you got back?
Yeah, that's a great question. The greatest thing that I've ever wanted, you said, and I worked hard for and I got it. This is going to be selfish, honestly. I'm going to say my college degree. Reason being, before, like years ago, I started college in 2002. And, growing up in this world, growing up in America in particular, you're basically taught to believe that having a higher social status, or I guess social economic status, whatever the people call it, like you're basically at a great position, So, for instance, like people with bachelor's degree, back in the year 2002 or the 1990s, like they were basically considered as people who had it good because they were determined to make good money, So me, in retrospect, getting a college degree to me was like getting a priceless or a unique shiny gold rock or whatever that money couldn't buy, And that was always on my mind since then, like getting a college degree so I could be one of those people who got a secure job and making secure money. And of course, eventually, I ended up getting a degree, which I ended up graduating last year December. But the things that I've learned at of course our church, Truth for the Final Generation, and things that I've learned throughout the years, throughout my past recent years, I learned that a piece of paper doesn't define me. There are people who are like, yo, I was born to do this, or I was born to go to this college. The thing about it is, people like are so like, I don't know, like I'm trying to put it in a great term, like as though they're so much in love with this material entity that they basically quote unquote idolize it. So for me, getting a college degree was my idol. And that's all I ever thought about as far as success. That was my definition of success, a college degree, which, in reality is not true, because there are many people who doesn't even have a high school degree and are far more successful than I am, So to answer your question, it was earning my college degree. Even though I have a college degree, like now I don't, even though it does play a significant role in my life, but at the same time, I'm not going to let it dictate me, It doesn't determine me, it doesn't define me overall as a human being, because my actions can help, define my success, not a piece of paper. That's just me.
Thanks. Basically, I kind of have an idea what you're going to say, but I want the audience to hear it. The biggest thing that you said, I'm going to work at, I'm going to put everything I have into it because I know I'm going to get results.
Well, for me, it's going to be the opposite of Carl. To those that's listening, a building doesn't make you wise, and that's not a shot to call. This is for those who feel like if you don't have a high school diploma or a college degree, that you can't be educated. As a matter of fact, usually an educated person is knowledgeable in just the field that they study. Mm-hmm. But to say that you have to, you have to be in the building would be a fallacious statement. I just have a high school diploma and I barely got that. But for me, what I really wanted, and it's been going on for 15 years, I did not want to work. I literally said, I'm not going to get out of my bed and go clock in on a plantation, and nobody's going to tell me I'm worth $10, $15, $20, $80 an hour. I said that I'm going to get up, get my own money. I was going to make my own films. I was going to get in the music industry on a high level, and I was going to have access to certain people around the planet. and that sucker happened. Now, for me, success, don't get me wrong, money's cool, gold and silver's cool, but, they always say it's not what you know, it's who you know. But there's another step that I would say that is true, but you want to be the person that everybody wants to know. You got to get to that next level. So you have to have something to offer as well as intellectual property. You have to have something to offer the person that has the money, because rich people don't spend with the rich per se. I don't want to sound like that is 100% truth. That's not 100% truth. That's sometimes. But usually when someone is guiding or helping you, it's something that you're bringing to the table. So what helped me was I just did not want to work. I did not want to work. Listen, man, yo, it's beautiful. I don't care what nobody tell you. I don't care what they say about me after this recording. It's nothing like getting up. I do not think about a job application. I do not think about what Donald Trump is doing to the economy. I am my own economy. And I will whatever I want to come into my life. I will strive for it. I will think it first. I will meditate on it. I will put forth the action, and I have no doubts in whatever I'm doing, and the money shows up. Now, for those of you who want to take that structure and jump out there, for me, I'm not saying that you cannot. For me, it took a lot of suffering. Now, I'm not saying you have to suffer. I'm saying me. It took a lot of suffering for me to get the understanding that I have now, because to tell you the truth, I always had it. It's just that I had doubts. And something had to push me over the cliff. And it happened. But in a nutshell, not working was my only goal. Well, not working for people. Yeah.
For me, it actually happened in 6th grade, towards the end of the year. I remember my homeroom teacher, her friend in the school, they were talking, and I overheard them talking and said that I'm going to win the Silver Knight. Had no idea what a Silver Knight was. I was relatively new to the whole American system, having just arrived a little over, that was like 7 or 8 months before. So all I knew was that she was a great teacher, and I really wanted it. Like Carl said about being selfish with a degree, my intentions were selfless, and I wanted to make sure that that lady, her prophecy came true. So for the next years of my life, I did everything possible so that dream could come true. I didn't know what it took to get a Silver Knight. I didn't research into it. I didn't look into it. But all I knew was that, as Jason was saying, with my intentions, with my positivity, everything throughout my academic career, I said, I want to let that lady be proud. And so in my senior year of high school, things just happened that I was in advanced placement English. Now, if you know me, I don't do grammar very well. How I end up in advanced placement English, I do not know. But that was the only way that I could be part of the Silver Knight nominating committee, be in advanced placement classes. So the person at our school who was in charge came into our classroom and said, anybody who wants to be a Silver Knight, sign this form. Again, like I said, I've been working on it mentally. I've been doing different projects. I didn't know that those were required, but throughout the years, I've been doing different projects. I've been making sure that especially our young people were being trained, being mentored, and that's one thing I did over the years. And I continue to do, mentor young people, and that was a qualification for being a Silver Knight. So, long story short, May 4th comes, and I'm at the Guzman Center up there with all the other Silver Knights, and wouldn't you know it, I won. I actually won the thing, and just as promised, I dedicated to her. The article is there in the Miami Herald for anybody to see. And I just wanted to close and just bring our topic full circle by saying, just like I said in the beginning, you know, for those of you who your truth is you and your physical abilities to get a job, to, as Carl said, to train your brain so that you could get a degree and to progress further. Like I said, starting off, it doesn't have to be about Jesus or whatever, but as a Christian, that is how I choose to engage and embrace, because there have been days not gonna lie to you, there have been days that it's been hard, but you know what? It wasn't about pleasing people at that point. It was just knowing that I had somebody, as Jason would say, that lived within my heart, who I knew, even after I've been through a hard time, I knew he was there. So what I want to put out there for you is that whatever it is that keeps you positive, keeps you going, embrace it, because this world is only going to get uglier, more negative, and you're going to need a place, some security that you could hold on to. And well, obviously for me, I would hope for you it would be Jesus Christ, but trust me, I'm gotten to the point where even he would understand if you learn to hold on to something, because I believe eventually you'd get to him. And so I want to thank my brothers Jason and Carl for coming today as we kick off this first episode of Your Truth, a presentation of three young men who are dedicated to sharing with you our truth. God bless.
You have been listening to Your Truth, a presentation of KJV Media.